My name is Emily, and for the longest time, I believed I had the perfect life. I lived in a peaceful town in Colorado, where the mountains touched the sky and the air always smelled like pine trees. I worked as a preschool teacher, loved baking cinnamon rolls on weekends, and I was married to the man I thought was the love of my life, Jason. Jason was tall, funny, and had this way of making you feel like the most important person in the room. We met at a community fair, right beside the cotton candy stand. He had this crooked smile, and before I knew it, he was buying me lemonade and talking about the stars. 2 years later, we were married in a small church with white roses and twinkling fairy lights. I supported Jason through everything. He was a mechanic when we met, but he had big dreams. He wanted to open his own auto shop. So, I worked extra hours, skipped vacations, and used part of my inheritance from my mom to help him get started. It took time, but his business finally took off. And with it, our lifestyle changed. We bought a house with a big backyard and even got a golden retriever named Max. But something changed last year. Jason started spending more time with his best friend, Chad. Chad had always been around ever since college. He was slick, loud, and always had some new business idea that never quite worked out. I never really liked him, but I tolerated him because Jason loved him like a brother. At first, it was just the two of them watching football on weekends or going fishing. But then it turned into late-night business talks, secret phone calls, and trips Jason wouldn't tell me about. Chad had been divorced twice and always had a new girlfriend every month. He didn't believe in settling down. He used to joke that I domesticated Jason. I brushed it off. People change, right? Maybe Jason just needed space. But then one afternoon, I found something that made my heart stop. A legal folder. It was tucked inside Jason's desk drawer, half covered by receipts. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for our water bill. But when I saw the words last will and testament, my fingers froze. I hadn't even known he updated it. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it, and there it was, clear as day. Jason had removed me from his will. Every single thing, his business, our home, our savings, was now going to Chad if anything happened to him. Not even Max was mentioned. I just stood there, holding that piece of paper, feeling like the floor had disappeared from under me. My hands shook. My heart pounded. I thought it had to be a mistake. A draft. Something temporary. But at the bottom, there was Jason's signature. Dated just a few weeks ago. I didn't know how to feel. Angry? Betrayed? Confused? I had given up so much for this man. My time, my energy, my money. I believed we were building something together. And now, he had quietly erased me from his future. But what hurt the most wasn't the legal paper. It was the way he came home that night like nothing had happened. Kissed me on the cheek. Asked what was for dinner. Like we were still that happy couple who once danced in the kitchen with flour on our noses. That night, I stared at the ceiling until sunrise, asking myself one question. Why would he do this? And the more I thought about it, the more one name kept popping into my head. Chad. You see, Chad always had a way of whispering into Jason's ear. Planting seeds. Making him question everything. And if Chad had something to gain, money, business, influence, he wouldn't hesitate to step over anyone. Including me. That's when I knew. Chad convinced Jason to cut me out of his will. And if they thought I was going to sit there and cry quietly, they had another thing coming. Because I was about to make sure they both regretted it. It started slowly. I didn't let them know that I knew. Not yet. I smiled, played the same sweet Emily I had always been. I made breakfast. I kissed Jason goodbye in the mornings. But inside, I was building a plan. A quiet storm. The first thing I did was meet with a lawyer, one who specialized in business and marital assets. I learned a lot in that one meeting, like the fact that even if Jason removed me from his will, I still had legal rights to the business since I had invested part of my inheritance in it. I hadn't just given him emotional support, I had used actual money. My mother's money. The lawyer helped me find the bank documents, the receipts, even a signed loan agreement from when Jason borrowed $30,000 to buy equipment. My name was on everything. And that meant, legally, I still own 49% of his auto shop. The next step was reconnecting with people. I called my old friend Monica, who worked in media and PR. I told her everything. She offered to help in any way she could. "Whatever you need," she said. "Let's make sure this story ends with you on top." But before I could even make my next move, something happened that threw everything into chaos. Jason came home late one night, smelling like expensive cologne and cheap wine. I was sitting at the kitchen table, working on some papers when I heard the door open. "Hey, babe," he said, slurring slightly. "Hey," I replied calmly. He walked past me, heading straight to the fridge, grabbing a bottle of beer. Then he leaned against the counter, looking at me like he didn't have a care in the world. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Now? Can't this wait till morning?" "No," I said, standing up. "It can't." I placed the copy of the will on the table. His eyes darted to it, and then back to me. He froze. "Where did you get that?" he asked, suddenly very sober. "That doesn't matter," I said. "I know everything now." He stared at me for a long moment, then muttered, "It's complicated, Emily." "Is it?" I interrupted. "Because it looks pretty simple to me. You cut your wife out of your will and handed everything over to your best friend." He didn't say anything. "You let Chad talk you into this, didn't you?" Still silence. The room was heavy. Even Max, who usually wagged his tail at anything, sat in the corner quietly. I took a step closer. "You betrayed me. After everything I've done for you." Jason rubbed his face with both hands. "It's not what you think. Chad he made some good points. He said if something happened to me, you wouldn't know how to run the business. So instead, you give it all to him?" His jaw clenched. "You don't understand. He's helped me with some deals. Important ones. I owe him." I took a deep breath. "And what about what you owe me?" He didn't answer. And that silence said everything. I walked upstairs without another word. But I didn't cry. I had cried enough. Now it was time to play the long game. The next morning, I moved $10,000 from our joint savings into a personal account, money I had earned teaching. I started visiting the auto shop during hours I knew Jason wasn't there. I asked questions, spoke to employees, smiled, took notes. And that's when I found out something very, very interesting. One of the mechanics, a kind older man named Dave, pulled me aside. "You know," he said, glancing over his shoulder, "Chad's been making a lot of visits lately, saying he's consulting for Jason. But I've seen the paperwork. He's funneling money out of the shop." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean," Dave whispered, "your husband's best friend is stealing from the business. Slowly, quietly. And Jason either doesn't know or doesn't care." My heart started racing. This was bigger than I thought. Chad wasn't just manipulating Jason, he was robbing him. And Jason cut me out of the will for him? That night, I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel. They thought they were smart, but I was about to turn the game upside down. Because now, I had proof. And that was when everything changed. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up in the living room, staring at the tiny flash drive Dave had given me. It had screenshots of Chad's fake consulting invoices, strange transfers, and even a few emails Chad had sent to the shop's accountant. Emails that Jason never saw. Chad had set up a second bank account and was draining money from the business, dollar by dollar. He was stealing, plain and simple. And Jason had handed him everything. I sat there, listening to the slow tick of the wall clock, Max curled up by my feet. My stomach was in knots. Not from heartbreak anymore, but from the weight of what I was about to do. The next day, I returned to my lawyer. I showed him the files, the emails, and explained everything Dave had told me. His reaction? "You've got a gold mine, Emily." He explained that with this evidence, not only could I file for divorce and claim my share of the business, but I could also press charges against Chad. Fraud. Embezzlement. Possibly even conspiracy if Jason was involved. But I didn't want to press charges. Not yet. Because I wasn't done watching them squirm. That's when I came up with a new idea, something bold. I reached out to Monica again, my media friend. She had once worked on exposés for local news and had connections. We met at a coffee shop, and when I told her everything, she leaned back in her seat and let out a low whistle. "You want me to help you go public?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "I want to set a trap first." She smiled. "Now you're speaking my language." Over the next few days, I kept pretending everything was fine. I cooked. I smiled. I even let Jason believe I hadn't touched the will since we talked. He seemed relieved, like maybe I had accepted it. He didn't know I had already made copies, or that I was working with Monica and a private investigator to track Chad's side hustles and shady connections. But just as everything was falling into place, a less extreme, but still painful, thing happened. I got home from work one day and found a box on the doorstep. Inside was my wedding album and a note. It read, "Let's not make this harder than it has to be. I'll always care about you. Jason." There was no return address, just the cold sting of the truth. Jason was preparing to leave me. No conversations, no fights, no final dinners, just slowly erasing me. I clutched that album like it was the last piece of the life I thought I had. I flipped through the pages, smiling faces, cake smudges, dancing under fairy lights. I remembered how he looked at me during our vows, like I was the only woman in the world. And now he was giving it all away. To Chad. To greed. To betrayal. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Instead, I called the investigator. "Let's move faster," I told him. "I want everything. I want bank records. I want screenshots. I want phone logs." And he delivered. A few days later, I had what I needed. Chad had been working with another guy, someone from Florida, selling stolen auto parts under the table. Some of the shipments were even traced back to Jason's business. Jason might have been clueless, but that didn't make him innocent. He was the owner, and now he was guilty by association. It was time for the next phase. I called Jason one morning and told him I had planned a special dinner for just the two of us. To talk things over, I said. To maybe start fresh. He seemed hesitant but agreed. I made his favorite, rosemary chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and pecan pie. He came home in a suit, smelling like cologne again. His hair was slicked back. He looked like the man I married, but colder, distant. We ate mostly in silence. Then I cleared the plates and brought out a thick folder. "What's this?" he asked. "Something you should have told me months ago," I said, sliding the papers across the table. He opened the folder and froze. There were pictures of Chad meeting with the guy in Florida. Bank statements showing money transfers. Even video clips from the private investigator of illegal parts being unloaded at night behind the auto shop. Jason's face turned white. Where did you get all this?" he stammered. "Does it matter?" I said softly. "You let him into our lives. You gave him everything. And he used you." "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear, Emily, I didn't know he was doing this." "Then why did you cut me out of your will?" I asked. My voice cracked. "Why did you choose him over me?" He looked down. Couldn't meet my eyes. "He said you'd leave me one day. That you only stayed for the money. That if something happened to me, you'd just sell the business and run." I laughed bitterly. "I was the money, Jason. I helped build that shop. I paid for the first lift machine. I covered rent when your bank account was empty." He closed his eyes. "I messed up." "No," I said. "You destroyed everything." I stood, grabbed the folder, and walked toward the door. And before I left, I said one last thing. "I'm going to fix this. But not for you." That night, I didn't go home. I stayed with Monica. And the next morning, we put the plan into motion. Monica had arranged an interview with a local news outlet. Nothing national, yet. Just enough to make waves. The story would focus on women who were secretly written out of their husbands' wills after helping build family businesses. It was perfect, but we needed one final blow. I reached out to Dave, the old mechanic again. I asked him one simple question. "Would you be willing to testify?" He agreed without hesitation. "You saved this place. People need to know the truth." We filmed the interview in Monica's studio. I kept my voice calm, steady. I didn't badmouth Jason or Chad. I just told the truth, how I helped build the business, how I supported my husband, and how I was erased for the sake of greed. When the video went live a few days later, everything exploded. The shop's Yelp reviews tanked. Customers pulled out. Jason's business partners backed away. And then, Jason called me. 36 missed calls in one day. I didn't answer. Then came the text. You went too far. But I hadn't even started. Because the very next morning, I got a call from the investigator. Emily, you won't believe this, he said. What? Chad skipped town, cleaned out one of the side accounts, and disappeared overnight. Left Jason holding the bag. Police are already looking for him. I sat on the edge of Monica's couch, my heart racing. He was gone. But the damage? The damage was just beginning. Because now, Jason was under investigation for fraud. And the shop? It was about to be seized by the state. I leaned back, let out a slow breath. For the first time in a long time, I smiled. But this story isn't over yet. Because what I did next, well, that's when things got really crazy. The shop was padlocked within 2 weeks. I drove by one morning just to see it with my own eyes. Yellow tape across the front, a bold closed pending investigation sign slapped on the glass door. The building that once held Jason's pride and our shared dreams now stood hollow, surrounded by silence and shame.
And Jason?
Jason was unraveling. Word around town spread fast. Friends stopped calling. Old customers posted angry reviews. And the vendors he used for car parts? They cut him off. No one wanted to be connected to fraud. Monica's story had taken off faster than we thought. Local news stations replayed my interview, especially the part where I said, I helped build something that was taken from me, but I refused to stay silent.
People cheered for me.
Women reached out online to share similar stories. One even said, you made me brave enough to leave my husband too. But even with all of that support, I still didn't feel like it was over. Not yet. Because Jason had something left. Our house. He was still living there like nothing had happened. And while I'd moved in with Monica for peace, that house still legally belonged to me too. My name was on the deed. My name was on the loan. And Jason was living in it like he owned the world. So I met with my lawyer again and filed a petition for partition. It's basically this legal thing where if you own property with someone and can't agree on what to do with it, you can ask the court to force a sale. Jason was going to have to move out, whether he liked it or not. And I didn't tell him. I wanted it to hit him by surprise. But before the court date, something less extreme, but still strange, happened. Jason showed up at Monica's door. It was a Saturday. Monica was out. I was baking cookies, music playing low in the background, when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there he was. Hair a mess, eyes bloodshot, wearing the same hoodie he used to wear on lazy Sundays. He looked lost. Emily, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Can we talk? I crossed my arms. Talk about what? How you gave everything to Chad. How you let him run your business into the ground while he robbed you blind. I didn't know.
You didn't want to know, I snapped.
He looked down at his shoes. I made a mistake. I laughed bitterly. A mistake is forgetting to lock the door. You rewrote your will and cut me out like I was a problem to be solved.
He didn't argue.
I miss you, he said quietly. That caught me off guard. You miss me? I repeated, my voice cold. Or, do you miss what I gave you? My money? My support? My loyalty? He didn't answer. Let me guess, I added. You came here because you found out about the court order. That made him flinch. I don't have anywhere else to go, he admitted. Everything's gone. Chad took it all. The bank account is empty. I'm being audited. I've lost clients. My parents won't even return my calls. I stared at him. He looked like a ghost of the man I once loved. But I couldn't forget the betrayal. You know what's funny, Jason? I said, keeping my voice even. I stood beside you through everything. And the moment you got a taste of success, you handed it all to someone else. Tears welled up in his eyes. Please, he whispered, help me. And in that moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered that wedding album in a box. The empty bank account. The sleepless nights wondering why I wasn't enough. "No," I said calmly. "Now you get to figure things out without me." I closed the door in his face. He didn't knock again. That week, I went to court. I showed the judge the ownership documents, the loan records, the signed receipts from my inheritance money. Jason showed up late and disheveled, without a lawyer. The judge ordered the house to be sold, and the profits to be split. Jason didn't say a word. He just stared down at the floor as the gavel hit. Afterward, I walked past him without looking back. But even then, I wasn't done, because I'd found something new, something even bigger. Remember that guy in Florida Chad was dealing with? Turns out he was under federal investigation. The private investigator called me one evening. "You sitting down?" he asked.
Why?
"Because Chad's been arrested in Florida.
And Jason?
He's being called in as a potential co-conspirator." I nearly dropped my phone. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means your ex might be facing real jail time." I leaned against the kitchen counter, breath caught in my throat. I had started this whole thing just trying to get back what was mine. I never imagined it would end with FBI agents and federal charges. But then, one more extreme thing happened. A few days later, I got a letter. Not an email, not a call. A handwritten letter slid under Monica's door. It was from Jason. Inside was just one sentence. "Chad offered me money to cut you out. He promised me 10% of the parts deal if I did." I read it over and over. That was it. The final confirmation. I had been sold off like a piece of property. Jason hadn't just believed Chad. He had agreed to the betrayal. For money. I folded the letter slowly, stared out the window at the evening sky. That letter changed something in me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. And I was going to make sure Jason never forgot what he lost. Because now I had everything I needed. The proof, the motive, the confession, and a media trail that was still on fire. It was time to make my final move. It was all falling into place. The house was under contract. Jason had no money left. The shop was being investigated for fraud. Chad was behind bars in Florida. And now, with that handwritten letter Jason had slipped under Monica's door, I had undeniable proof that the betrayal wasn't just a mistake. It was intentional. Jason had sold me out for a 10% cut of an illegal deal. I held on to that letter like it was a trophy. Not out of pride, but as a reminder. A reminder that I wasn't crazy. That I hadn't imagined the shift in Jason, the coldness, the lies. I had been right all along. But I wasn't done yet. I gave the letter to my lawyer and the private investigator. They both agreed. It was enough to fully clear my name if things ever turned legal. And with Chad already under investigation, it wouldn't be long before the authorities came knocking on Jason's door too. And that's exactly what happened. 2 weeks later, Jason was arrested. Not in some dramatic police chase, but right at a diner near downtown. He was sitting alone, eating scrambled eggs when federal agents walked in and cuffed him without a word. Someone recorded it on their phone. The video went viral. And that's when everything exploded. Jason's mugshot appeared on the evening news. People who once idolized him now whispered behind his back. His family? Silent. His friends? Vanished. His brother, Chad? Not a word from jail. And me? I was free. But I wasn't just going to walk away and disappear.
No.
I wanted to use everything I'd learned, everything I'd survived, to help other women who were quietly going through what I had. So I started something new. A nonprofit. I called it Silent No More. It was small at first. Just me and Monica working out of her garage. But soon, people started donating. Women started calling. Volunteers joined. We helped women uncover hidden financial abuse, find legal support, and get out of bad situations. It was real. It was raw. It was healing. And one day, I got an email that stopped me cold. Subject line: from someone who owes you everything. It was from Dave, the mechanic who had helped me months earlier. Inside, he wrote, "Emily, after everything that happened, I wanted you to know I've bought the shop from the bank. It was auctioned off after the state seized it. I used my retirement savings. I'm going to reopen it, honestly this time. And I'm naming it Emily's Garage. You saved us. This is my way of thanking you. I burst into tears. It wasn't about the money or revenge. It was about respect, recognition, the full circle of knowing that the pain I went through had planted seeds of something better. But just when I thought the story was done, something unexpected happened. Again. I was at a community event for the nonprofit, shaking hands, sharing stories, when a young woman approached me. She looked nervous, clutching a folder. "I think you knew my sister," she said. I tilted my head. "Who's your sister?" Her name was Rachel.
She used to date Chad.
He got her into some bad stuff. She passed away last year. My stomach dropped. "I found this in her things," the woman continued, handing me the folder. "It's all her notes, everything Chad was involved in.
Names. Dates.
Even some bank slips." I opened the folder right there, and my heart nearly stopped. Rachel had kept everything. Records from the illegal parts business. Emails Chad had sent. Even voice memos where he talked about paying Jason under the table to get the wife out of the way. It was more than just proof. It was a bombshell. I handed it straight to my investigator. And within days, the case against Chad was upgraded. He wasn't just looking at fraud anymore. He was facing serious federal charges for organized crime and possibly manslaughter tied to one of the parts suppliers. Jason? He tried to cooperate in exchange for leniency. He gave them more names, more details. But it didn't save him. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with no chance of parole for the first 2. I attended the sentencing. I didn't go for drama. I went for closure. He saw me as he was being led away in cuffs. And for the first time, he didn't look angry or smug or proud. He looked small.
Defeated.
And I felt nothing. Just peace. When I stepped outside the courthouse that day, the sun was shining. I took a deep breath, like I was finally breathing fresh air for the first time in years. And guess what? I was. People often ask me if I regret anything. And maybe part of me regrets not seeing the signs sooner, not trusting my instincts. But if I had to do it all over again, I would, because I stood up for myself. I spoke out when they tried to silence me, and I made sure they both regretted it. Jason lost everything. Chad lost his freedom.
And me?
I found my voice, my purpose, and something even better than revenge. Freedom.